Hello and welcome to an episode of TomBecka.com where everyone's extraordinary and everyone has a story to tell. And Rita Rae has a story to tell. Yeah, Rita Rae is a wife, she's a mother, she's a waitress, she's the all-American girl next door. That is, of course, the all-American girl next door slept with dozens and dozens of rock stars. Yeah, if they were a hair band in the 80s, a good chance Rita Rae knew at least one of the members in the band. And she talks openly about it in her book, Once Upon a Rock Star, and also on her webpage, OnceUponARockStarBook.com. And Rita Rae is, she came back from the brink. She got heavily involved in drugs. She got heavily involved with the LA party scene, only to be able to turn her life around and become a wife, a mother, and the girl next door. Yeah, some people might call her a groupie. Rita Rae wouldn't call herself that, though.
I always saw myself, Tom, as I would like to say a ultra fan or professional guest are the words I would like to use.
A professional guest? What does that mean?
Well, a professional guest to me was somebody that just wasn't going to the concert. I actually researched a lot about the rock stars that were performing in the band that night, and I would read up on them and just kind of really find out as much as I could about them, and I would kind of locally try to track them down before the concert. So I would put a little effort into trying to meet them before they even got to the concert hall, if I could.
So this was not a thing necessarily where you would just get all dressed up and then try to get to the front of the stage and have them notice you. You would do work on this. This was like you were hunting your prey.
Well, in the beginning of my book, it started out like that. I used to get up to the front of every concert. We used to get down to the Civic Auditorium like at 6 o'clock, 5:30, and the gates would open up at 6:30, and we'd get in that madness of the fight to the front of the turnstiles, and then you would run like crazy to the front of the stage.
No, wait. We're talking about this here. How old are you? When you first started doing this, how old were you?
The first concert I ever went to was Aerosmith in 1979, and I paid $8.50 for a ticket. And me and my best girlfriend, Lisa, at the time, we literally rode the city bus down there, and, we both ran track, so we got right up front.
How old were you?
I was 14.
You were 14.
14.
And you're doing Aerosmith. But now you weren't a groupie then, or a professional guest at that point.
I would just say I was a big fan then, but I used to work at Wendy's, and I would save all my money, and, I'd buy my concert tickets in advance, and, literally I would buy a new outfit pretty much every time I was going to a show, too.
Now, okay, where were your parents in all of this? Did they know what was going on here?
Well, in the very beginning, I got really good grades in school, so my mom was cool. Like, as long as I got good grades and I was home by midnight or really on a school night, like 11 o'clock, she didn't really have a beef with it because, she didn't know that I enjoyed going to see shows and how much I really liked music. But the point was, as long as I was home and I was getting good grades, it didn't really seem to interfere with anything. So, she didn't put any restrictions on me she never told me no, because if it was something that I really wanted to do and showed interest in, and I saved the money to, go to the show, she was good with it.
So as long as, yeah. So now, okay, would you dress one way when you left the house and then change on the way to the concert?
As I got older, I did. But when I was younger, in the 70s, we pretty much wore like painter's pants and a transfer t-shirt, like those iron-on t-shirts.
Sure.
The transfers were pretty big in the time. So that's really what we wore, was just jeans and t-shirts.
Okay, so now so you're 14, you're going to Aerosmith and that, and not much is happening. When did you lose your virginity to a rock star?
When I was 15, which was a year later.
You are every parent's worst nightmare.
Well, I didn't know that it was going to happen like that. I just kind of, that particular day, we didn't go to the front of the stage. We actually got in the first row on the first balcony right up by the stage. Mm-hmm. So we were pretty close to the band members. And as the opening act, it was Billy Squier was opening up for Alice Cooper. As they were exiting the stage, we ran over to the side more and leaned over, and we started yelling at Billy Squier and his band. And he looked up and just kind of, smiled at us and then went after that. And I was yelling about how we wanted to go backstage. And then probably about 2-3 minutes later, they sent out a roadie, and he came over and brought us backstage.
Okay, so there you're backstage, and you're with Billy Squier at 15.
Right. Well, we were just kind of hanging out in the hospitality area and got a free soda. And, I didn't really know what to expect. We were just super thrilled that we were actually getting to meet a rock star. I think the only other time I'd ever seen anybody like a rock star up close and personal was through the window at They used to have a record store at the Westroads, and I remember Foreigner was there one Saturday when me and my girlfriend were shopping at the Westroads, and we just thought that was so cool that they were at the record store, but the line was so long that we never went in. But so we were pretty excited to be backstage, and, I believe we said we were 16 because they did ask us how old we were.
Right.
But, at that age, we were always lying about how old we were anyway. We were always trying to be like a year or two older just to, I don't know. We thought it was cool then.
Was that did you lose your virginity backstage?
I did, on a tour bus with Billy Squier. And basically they asked me if I'd ever been on a bus tour before. And I was not really knowing what that really meant, but I thought, oh, okay, cool. I was game, to go on the bus, and then just one thing kind of led to another. And next thing you know, I'm getting, my boots knocked.
Okay. So now you have gone into this realm here, and instead of just saying it was a fond memory, now all of a sudden you're like getting on a quest, aren't you? I mean, you're like, you are really into the bands, you're really into this, and realizing this backstage thing is a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, and pretty much at that point, Scott Baio was out and Billy Squier was in.
What do you mean Scott Baio was? Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Chachi all of a sudden
Chachi was out and Billy
Chachi
Squier
wasn't
was
doing
out.
anymore. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. So all of a sudden you're going for the bad boys now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just, I didn't really tell anybody. I told my best girlfriend who was there, and I didn't really tell anybody about it because I think at that age, it was kind of like you would hear about some girls losing their virginity here and there, at that age. And then the ones that did, they were considered sluts around school or whatever. And as a stereotype or anything, but I just kind of didn't really tell anybody. It was kind of like my personal secret. I mean,
you're going to a Catholic school this time, aren't you?
No, I'm going to, I just had gotten out of middle school, actually. Okay. I was going to be going into Central High School.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought you went to a Catholic school for some reason.
No. Not that would have done me any better.
Okay. So yeah. So on one hand, you're loving this life. On the other hand, you don't want to tell your friends because you didn't want to be thought of as a slut.
Well, not only that, but I didn't think anybody believed me either. Mm-hmm. But I just didn't, go around telling, because, once it got out, when somebody lost their virginity or some girl slept with somebody, everybody in the school knew about it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I mean, everybody knew about it. So it would be like, you'd hear, oh my God, somebody else lost their virginity to so-and-so. And, so it was kind of like cool to me because I got to experience sex, lose my virginity without anybody knowing, and nobody in the school ever knew. So it wasn't like it got around. It was
wasn't like the high school boys, telling all their buddies.
Right.
It was, yeah. Now what about? But now you went to the concert with a friend.
Right. I went to the concert with my friend and her little sister.
Okay. So what happened to them while you're having sex with Billy Squier?
Well, when I went out to the tour bus, they went back into the auditorium, into the arena, because Alice Cooper was coming on stage at that time. And, I was like, I didn't think I was going to miss the whole show. I mean, I missed most of it. But, I didn't know what was happening. And I was having a good time. And I was just really, ecstatic because he was paying attention to me. And here was this rock star that I had just seen come off the stage and, was interested in me. And at that time, we were all kind of boy crazy. So I was just, going with the flow and just having a good time.
Okay. So there it was. Okay. So then from there on, then, it was like the 80s hair bands were becoming popular.
Right.
And you went hair band crazy, for lack of a better term, right?
I would say so. I would say I went a little boy crazy. After Billy Squier, like literally after that happened, I would have to say that just like any girl at that age, I had like the biggest crush on him. I mean, I really kind of probably believed at one point in my life that I was hoping to marry him or something ridiculous like that. But that lasted, I don't know how long, a little bit over a year. I still went to some other shows, but I was still really like enamored by him. And it wasn't really until I saw David Lee Roth front row, up close and personal, that I just looked at him and I thought, oh my gosh, I got to do that guy.
Really?
Yes.
So it was what was it about? Okay, like in your other life, okay, in your school life and everything like that. What kind of boys were you attracted to? Were you attracted to the bad boys? Were you attracted to the guys with the long hair and an attitude, or was it just something when you were at the rock shows that just something triggered in you?
It's just that. At that time in school, I was kind of like, I had my crush about Scott Baio was so crazy that if they didn't look like Scott Baio, I wasn't going after them. Okay. But it wasn't until really like when I saw after, sleeping with Billy Squier and then seeing David Lee Roth, I think that like the high school boys weren't really, my style anymore. I was looking for somebody that was more experienced and, I was just fantasizing more about them, of a singer of a rock band or just kind of just a superstar, really.
Now, do you think your parents or your family was noticing any change in you during this time? From that sweet little innocent girl that had a crush on Scott Baio to, Rita Rae Roxx, who's now hanging out at the concerts and sleeping with rock stars.
Right. Well, my parents didn't know who I was sleeping with, or
yeah, well, I know.
I never told them any of that.
Just your personality change. I mean,
well, I think when they saw the Scott Baio posters come down and the David Lee Roth posters go up, and all of a sudden, like, all the rock magazines that I could get, and I had all posters of David Lee Roth everywhere. After that, I mean, my whole room was pretty much covered. So, I pretty much got really good grades in school. So my parents didn't really say much about it. And it wasn't until the year that my mom passed away in high school that I think that I just kind of, didn't really care. I mean, I graduated and all, but I just really didn't focus on anything else, but just kind of, went down, I wouldn't say the wrong road, but my life just kind of spiraled out of control, just partying. I was just kind of like really involved with music. And I think that was just kind of like therapy. And, I just wanted to I lived and breathed music. And at that point, right after graduating from high school, it's like the day after I graduated, I flew on a plane to the US Festival in 1983. And it was like a 3-day party out in San Bernardino, California. Mm-hmm. And then after getting back after that, it was kind of like I still worked and I went to school part-time at Metro, but I still, would look for other concerts in, the Omaha area that I could travel to and, see who was coming to town. But it's what I lived to do, it was.
Now, let me ask you, okay, you mentioned before that, you did all the research on the bands, okay? Now,
as I got older,
now let's go through this. Okay, so Billy Spry was the first, and then did you end up backstage with David Lee Roth? Wanting him and getting him are two different things.
Right. I didn't get backstage at that concert. My girlfriend at the time, after the show was over, she didn't see the vision that I saw of wanting to hang out and meet him. To her, the show was over and we had school in the morning and, we were ready to go home. But it wasn't, until later that I met a couple guys that were from LA that were staying in Omaha for a while, trying to do a band here that would talk so much about LA. And they were telling me that, oh my God, David Lee Roth, he hangs out in the clubs in Hollywood all the time and he's always there and da-da-da-da-da. So, basically what I did is I saved my money up, and that summer of my junior year, I took off and I went to LA for 3 weeks. And I didn't consider it running away. I left a note, but I just kind of wrote, P.S. I'll be back in 3 weeks. But I knew my parents weren't going to let me go. And I took off and I went to LA. And a day before I was coming back to Omaha, I went to the Troubadour on a weekend night. And I was sitting there having a drink. And next thing I know, I turned around and I saw this guy with long blonde hair just flowing and chest open, hair everywhere. And I thought, oh my God, that's David Lee Roth. And I thought, oh my God, everyone looks like David Lee Roth hair. Maybe it's just a lookalike, right? Because they had, poser was really the big word back then. If you weren't truly a rock star and you tried to look like one, they would call you a poser. And then I remember I did a double take and then there were 5 women practically on top of him. And I went, oh my God, that's David Lee Roth. So 2 seconds later, I look away and the next thing I know, he's standing right next to me. So I looked over at him because I had met him before here in Omaha and I didn't get backstage, but I went to the hotel that they were staying at and I got thrown out of the bar by a police officer, undercover police officer that remembered me for pulling me over for a traffic violation and knew that I was underage. So I was this close to getting him, a year previously.
Right.
So then next thing I know, I just looked over and I said, hey, what's up? And he's like, hey. And I said, how about that drink you owe me? And he says, well, what are you talking about? And I said, well, you invited me in for a drink last time I met you, but your bodyguard kicked me out. And then he asked me how old I was. And then I lied again and said I was 18, even though I was only 16.
You're 16 and you're 16. You're in the Troubadour in LA drinking.
Right. Well, I had fake ID.
Well, evidently.
Right. Yeah. Well, I went through a few of them, but
and by the way, so now where are you staying in LA when you're down there? Are you with a friend or anything? Or are you just a motel, or are you just sleeping around with where you could crash?
I met a girl the first time I went out there. I was staying with a friend, and then he ended up ditching me, and I was staying at his friend's house, and then I met this girl. And she was 14 and I was 16, and I told her what happened to me, and she went home and talked to her mom. And they let me stay with her family. And it was, her mother was divorced and she had a little brother, and I stayed with them up until I left California. And me and her remained pen pals. So the next time I went out there, I stayed with her and her family.
Okay, so now you're with David Lee Roth. You're saying you owe me a drink, blah, blah, blah. You lie about your age, okay? You say you're 18.
Right.
But it was still 21 to drink, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're still there. Yes, and so he buys you the drink?
Well, he asked me what I wanted to drink, and I said, well, instead of getting me a drink, I said, how about if you get me some tickets and passes to your concert in Omaha, Nebraska? Because it was coming up in a couple months.
Uh-huh.
And he said, sure, just tell this guy right here, which ended up being his bodyguard who assisted in the throwing me out of the bar with the police officer. So I said, well, why don't you tell him? And he said to me, well, why don't we just go for a ride on my Harley? And then right then my jaw just dropped and I was just like, no way. So he said to me, okay, well, let's start heading for the door. He says, grab my hand and whatever you do, don't let go of my hand. And as we were exiting the bar, I mean, he was mobbed by girls. I mean, I couldn't believe it. There were literally girls coming up to them, pulling their tops off, flashing themselves. And I was just amazed that he was even giving me the time of day, let alone taking me for a ride on his Harley.
Now, was there anything during this time when you're looking at all this and saying, oh my God, I'm one of them. You know what I mean? In other words, was there anything that said that you were just one of a million and made you feel bad or cheap or anything like that?
Well, I don't think I really felt cheap. I mean, I was feeling pretty damn good because the thing was my mission was when I went out to California was to get to try to meet David Lee Roth. And here was my time. And literally like 2 days before I was leaving town is when I met him. And so to me, I was just blown away that he would be interested in me because at that time, I had never seen fake boobs before or really a lot of bleach blonde hair until I went to Hollywood.
Right.
And when I, seen all these girls with bleach blonde hair and just like the hugest boobs that you could possibly imagine, I was just, me with my little, 34 B cup. I was like, kind of blown away that he was taking interest in me. But it was great because like once we got on our Harley, I had originally went there with somebody else I knew to the bar. And once I paid his cover charge, he ditched me. Right. So it was kind of funny because the next time he saw me, I was getting on the back of David Lee Roth's Harley and I looked at him and I waved and I went, bye-bye, just like that. Right. And he was just standing there with his arms crossed, all pissed off at me.
Okay. So did you end up then sleeping with David Lee Roth that night or?
Yes. I went back to his hotel or his house. He had a condo, not a house. It was a condo in West Hollywood, right off of Holloway in a high rise. And it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, it was a high rise and never been anything like that before. And it was, kind of sparsely, it didn't have a whole lot of furniture. And he had told me that he had just bought in the place and that he was in the midst of remodeling.
Remodeling and everything, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you've got the rock and roll lifestyle. Now you've really got. By the way, when he came to Omaha, did you end up seeing him again?
Yes, I did actually. It was crazy because I didn't know how I was going to get in contact with him. He had given me a phone number of his secretary that they had for the Van Halen offices that I had. And so anyway, I got to see him like right before he did sound check. I went down to the Red Lion and I got on the guest list. And it was pretty cool because when I first got back to California, I told everybody that I met David Lee Roth and went home to him, went back to his house and slept with him. Nobody believed me. I mean, they really did.
Well, yeah. Why would they believe it? Yeah.
Well, it was pretty interesting. So then what happened is when I went to the show, I had like one of my girlfriends who was with me. She didn't really believe me. And then when we saw him right before he went to sound check and he's like, hey, babe, whatever, I'll see you at the show tonight. She was just blown away. I mean, she couldn't even talk. And so, I mean, we went to the show that night and I was all dressed up. I had like, I think Norma Kamali is who I was wearing that night because she was hot, in the 80s. But after the show, we went back to the Red Lion Inn, which is now the DoubleTree, and, went in the bar and had drinks with him and a guy named Ted Templeton, who was with Warner Brothers.
Yeah, Ted Templeton was like a very famous producer.
Yes, he was. And
yeah, I mean, he produced Doobie Brothers and he produced Van Halen and a bunch of other stuff.
So, and it was pretty cool because, nobody could come around us in the bar because he had a bodyguard that came.
No, okay, so you're there with David Lee Roth and Ted Templeton and that, okay? Mm-hmm. Did any other band members, in other words, was there ever any, did you ever have like, Eddie or, any of the other band members like hit on you or Ted, in other words, any of the other people surrounding it? In other words, I guess what I'm thinking is they see this hot young girl who's just, gaga over rock stars and they're thinking, hey, I'm with the band. Come over here and do me too. Anything like that?
I didn't see anything like that happen, but that night as I was leaving, it was like about 3:00 or something in the morning and, Eddie Van Halen they were all kind of by the elevators getting ready to go down to the bus. And Eddie Van Halen, I was sitting there next to him and he had lifted up my skirt and looked underneath my skirt. And I just gave him a big grin. And that was really, but he never actually said anything to me or really spoke to me. Because I think,
why make conversation if, you just look up a girl's skirt? Yeah.
Exactly. But I did, speak to Eddie later on, years later. I had a little more conversation with him backstage when Sammy Hagar was in the band. Mm-hmm. I met them again.
Okay. And anything that time?
No, I didn't get anywhere near him. He was married. And to be honest with you, I wasn't trying to really go after the married guys. But then, maybe if it would have happened, I probably would have did it. But I really didn't want to do something like that.
Were you going, you say you didn't want to go after the married guys. Were you trying to become a rock wife? Were you hoping that maybe one of these rock stars would marry you and then put you in that lifestyle or what?
That was my teenage dream, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Now, when that wasn't happening, now, first of all, I mean, we're not talking with just David Lee Roth and,
Billy Squier.
Yeah, Billy Squier. We're not just talking those two guys. How many rock stars do you think you slept with over the years?
Well, successful or unsuccessful?
What do you mean?
Well, I slept with a lot of musicians, I guess would be the word, but, I would say probably, close to 50. Right around there.
Okay. Help me with the definitions here now. When you say you slept with a lot of musicians, so in other words, it wasn't always the lead singer. Maybe
right. It might have been the bass player or the drummer or the guitar player, I wasn't just out there to sleep with anybody. I mean, I was, I kind of had picked out who I wanted to kind of sleep with. But then again, a lot of times you meet people. And not that you expect royal treatment for them, but some people weren't always nice. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they might have just been having a bad day. I'm not sure. But sometimes they were jerks and there was a lot of egos going on. And if somebody was very aggressive, which I had in the case of when I first met Nikki Sixx, he was very overly aggressive. And that was kind of a turnoff for me. For somebody to just kind of grab at you and expect you to.
Wait. Now, help me out. Now, okay, so Eddie Van Halen can look up your skirt and that's no big deal. But so what did Nikki Sixx do that you thought was out of line?
Well, it was backstage. It wasn't backstage, but we were at the Bronco Bowl down in Dallas, Texas. I got backstage and then I went to, I think it was the Green Tree or something, kind of Doubletree Hotel or something like that in Dallas. And I was partying in Doc McGee's room. Doc McGee, who was another big rock guy.
He's a manager. Matter of fact,
right.
He manages Bon Jovi and also
Motley Crue. He did.
Yeah, but I think isn't he also Kiss's manager? I think.
I don't remember, but I just remember we were in his room and just hanging out and partying, and that Nikki Sixx came in the room, and I was introduced to him, and literally he just kind of came. I was sitting on the bed and he pushed me back and pulled my shirt up and, started sucking on one of my boobs. And I'm like, get off of me. And he said, oh, you want it like that. Uh-huh. And I was like, well, maybe, but not like this, and get off of me. And, I was kind of humiliated a little bit. I just kind of thought that if, the intimacy would have been more of a private moment and not, for display for everybody in the room to see.
Right. Now, was this a thing too? Now, as you had gotten more and more rock stars, where maybe you became more and more in control, as opposed to that young girl that in the past would have been I get to sleep with, David Lee Roth, but now you've already slept with a number of rock stars, and so Nikki Sixx comes in and starts doing that, and it's no, more on my terms now?
Well, the thing is I try to act like whenever I was meeting a rock star, I was meeting a rock star for the first time. Mm-hmm. So
they had no idea.
I didn't try to advertise that. No, not at all. I always tried to act like I was just meeting somebody for the first time. Some people probably knew, and some people, probably didn't know. But the thing is that, I didn't want to act like, they were just another, notch on my bedpost.
Okay, so you wanted them to feel special.
Exactly.
Okay, now.
Feels like the first time.
Okay, so you're doing this now, and I mean, help me out with the time frame here now, because you are first of all, I guess I got to ask this question. We got to go into some of the sex questions here, I guess. Okay, before I go to this, I think a lot of women might think that rock stars, just by definition, are better lovers. In other words, if they're going to be getting a David Lee Roth versus an accountant, or an insurance salesman, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Okay. Would that be the case? I mean, were these guys, what was the attraction? Was it the power? Was it the atmosphere? I mean, was it better sex?
I wouldn't say that it was, I would say that it was I wouldn't say there was better sex. I just say it was more exciting sex. It was exciting to me to see somebody like when MTV came out was just really just an explosion of, just media of all these rock stars of just, the different styles and seeing all the different faces. I mean, before that MTV, you were really just kind of hearing the music. You didn't really know what a whole lot of people looked like, in the band unless you really, followed up and had all their albums or anything. So I just think that it was just, exciting for me to just kind of see somebody think, wow, he's cute. I want to get him. And then they were coming to town. So, I would just kind of try to find out where they were from. I would look on inside sleeves of magazines or albums and, find out who their special credits were to, like, the special thanks of, especially mainly like the manager, the production manager, or anybody that I could, find a name and name drop, when the show came to town to try to find a lead into getting me one step closer, into getting backstage.
So you'd like lie. You'd read a name of, let's say, special thanks to so-and-so, and then you would go and make a phone call and say, yeah, hey, I'm friends with so-and-so, and they,
Or, yeah, we met you last time we were here. I mean, I think the key thing is one time when I got into backstage at the Civic, I actually went into the production office and used the phone in there and wrote the phone number down of the direct line into the production office of the Civic Auditorium. So when concerts came in, there was a couple times I could just call right back to the production office and start hollering off names and rattling off names. And then back in the day, I mean, really the radio stations kind of controlled who got backstage and who didn't. So basically it was really radio personnel and, there wasn't a whole lot of people backstage back then unless the radio brought them back.
Okay.
It wasn't, you didn't have tons of groupies, I think, until, MTV came out in the mid 80s when there was just really an explosion of just the whole scene, but in the very beginning when I got backstage, there would be hardly anybody back there. It'd be very easy to even just walk in right in. Once you got backstage, you could just basically walk almost into the dressing room.
Right, because maybe a lot of people wouldn't even try to go backstage because they would think that it'd be a lot more problem than it would be to get backstage.
Right, exactly. And then when it kind of became easy to me. And then when it wasn't always easy, it became more of a challenge to me. So it was kind of like, like a little adventure, or a little, what do you call it, treasure hunt or something.
Was it always one-on-one with the rock stars, or would it be like would you do 2 or 3 guys in the band, or would there be like 2 or 3 girls with the one rock star at the time, or just how how kinky did it get?
Well, I didn't think it got really that kinky. There was a couple instances where I was with a girl and we were not with the same guy, but where we were both in the same room having sex with 2 members of the band, but not at the same time.
You had to think. What were you counting as to who the band was, or
well,
how many members were there?
Well, it was kind of like they were sharing a room, and so we were both in the room, but we weren't all in the same bed or anything. But that was, I guess they were saving money on a room. I'm not really quite sure what was going on there.
They were the opening act.
Yeah, but the thing was, is a lot of times, the bands didn't always stay. So you just got to party in the dressing room, or sometimes there would be, you go back to the hotel and party in the hotel bar, and the bus would be leaving at like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning. They didn't always spend the night.
Right. Where was the weirdest place that you had sex with a rock star?
Gosh, probably on that bus. I would say I wouldn't, can't really think of anywhere else besides a hotel room or in the bus. I never did it in a dressing room or anything.
Now, there was a time in your life then you went to L.A.
Right.
Now, you went to L.A. to live the rock and roll lifestyle? Why did you go to L.A.?
I moved to L.A. when I was 21. And basically, I just knew that when I turned of age, of legal drinking age, that I just didn't want to be in Omaha anymore. And I wanted to go where the action was. And I had moved out to LA. And my first intention was, when I was living out there, is I had been sewing and I used to make clothes. And I was modified a lot of my own outfits. And was one time I was backstage at Bon Jovi concert and I was wearing an outfit that I made. And Bon Jovi was like, "That's great. You should think about doing clothes." And I thought, oh, I didn't even think about it, And, but for somebody like him, okay, by the way, he was an opening act back then, but, him giving me the compliment on what I made, it kind of really opened up a door for me. So when I first moved out there, I was trying to do stage clothes for bands, but there was a lot of competition out there for that at the time. But I still, I got to make a jacket for Bret Michaels, which was like my big claim to fame, I guess. That's about as far as he did. And I did talk to Nikki Sixx one time about making some clothes with him. At the Rainbow Bar and Grill one night, but I didn't know if he was just, nothing ever came about of that.
How much drugs were involved? I mean, how prevalent was the drug scene with this?
Well, after going backstage at concerts, I think that like the number one thing was they always ask you if you knew where to get any coke or get any weed. So, in the very beginning, I mean, I didn't always have those things, but then later on, I would usually go with no less than an 8-ball of blow, so it was kind of funny because then it was like, your first line is free and your second line costs you $80. I wasn't really say like I was a dealer, but I knew a dealer that was at the concert that would take care of them,
When or did it ever start to lose its luster? In other words, I mean, yeah, you're young, you're energetic, it's a rock star life and blah, blah, blah. But, sleeping around like that, doing drugs, was that getting old or at what point did that start getting old?
Well, after living out in LA for a few years, it's kind of like, it wasn't until I got a job at a nightclub called Tramps of London in Beverly Hills. That was a private nightclub. It was $5,000 a year to join, to just belong to this club. And it wasn't until I started working then that I kind of fell out of the rock scene because now I was hanging out and partying with like movie stars and, people and producers and movie people and athletes, and then I kind of thought, well, there's bigger fish to fry, and I kind of just, the rock thing kind of it did get a little old for me because I think when I got out to LA, there was just so much to do. And then, going to shows all the time. And not only that, but I was like a small fish in a big pond when I got out to LA. I mean, I did get backstage to a few shows out there, but then you've got all the media, you've got all the radio personnel, you've got all the record companies there with all the executives and all their employees. So when you went backstage in LA, it was nothing like as personal as it was back here in Omaha. Mm-hmm. Like you wouldn't be able to walk into the dressing room there at a place and, unless of course they were playing someplace like Sunset Strip. It was like a personal show at like the Roxy or the Whiskey or something like that. But it didn't have the same excitement for me. I think it's just because I did get a little burnout on it.
Okay, so, and how old are you at this point in time getting burned out on it?
Probably about 22, 23, right around in there. After a couple years of, doing it, I just had other, once I started partying like in $1 million mansions and stuff like that, it was kind of like, I was just kind of not really into it as much as I was,
Okay, so was that because the drugs were taking effect or taking hold? I mean, because you became pretty addicted. You got pretty heavily involved with the drug scene, didn't you?
Yeah, with cocaine and marijuana, at the time. Mainly cocaine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and did you see anybody die during this time or any friends die because of the drugs? Or
I never really witnessed anybody dying. I have witnessed some people like, you thought you were almost to the point where you thought you were going to have to drop them off at the hospital, but it never quite got that bad. But I did know some people that I used to be friends with. Like I knew a girl that, she started out as being a stripper and then ended up being a porno star. And it was sad because by years later, after I finally saw her again, it's like she didn't even look the same because she had had so much plastic surgery. And then I heard that she ended up overdosing on heroin. But I did see a lot of people, downfall from drugs more so than I really had.
What about you? Did you ever do any stripping, any porno, anything like that?
You know what? I never did stripping, but I had a girlfriend that told me she was doing bikini grams. And I thought, oh, cut the shit, right? You're a stripper.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had a girlfriend that was a stripper. And one night she wanted to go out, but she told me she had to do a couple parties and she asked me to drive her. So I drove her to these parties. And when I saw what kind of money she was making, I wasn't going to dance, but I got tipped out like literally 10%, of what she made. And I helped her make that money. So that's how I kind of got into doing stand-up comedy too, is because I used to walk out into the room and these were private homes that we would do bachelor parties in and just go out there and kind of, talk to the crowd, get the guys going, make change. And it was very entertaining for me and them. And I really enjoyed that. And
wait. Okay. So wait a minute. Now, okay. You start out, you're being a super fan.
Right.
Okay. And then you do that, and then you're out in L.A., and you're a cocktail waitress for a bunch of movie stars and actors. Were you a super fan of the movie stars and actors, too? Were you sleeping with a bunch of actors and stuff, or?
Not really, but we went to a lot of parties. There was always, a lot of parties going on in Cal. I mean, literally, we'd work till 2:00 in the morning, and after that, there'd be a party somewhere, and then you'd be at a party till 7:00 in the morning. Then you'd come home, or you might get breakfast somewhere, and then you'd sleep all day, and then you'd get up at 8:00, take a shower, and go back to work at 10 again.
Okay, so then you're doing that, and then now you're driving a stripper friend around town. She's doing bachelor parties and stuff.
Right.
And you're working as the MC, and as the MC, now you're starting to add jokes to it and get some laughs and get the crowd going. So you're using this as a way to start doing stand-up comedy, because if I'm thinking of the time frame correctly, this would have been about the same time that, a lot of the, like Sam Kinison was hanging out with the rock stars and that.
Right.
It was like the boom of the comedy boom, at the same time the hair bands were big in LA. So it was a melding of the two worlds.
Right. I actually did the driving before I got the job at Tramps of London. I only drove strippers around for about a year because it wasn't until one time we were doing a private show that the Bachelorette came home early, or the bride-to-be came home early and surprised her groom, and it was not a good scene, and they trashed my car, and I was the driver. So I realized that this could be dangerous. Okay. Like, the money was so good and we were always doing drugs. So it just seemed like it was just the party, and then we'd go out to Hollywood afterwards. But, that's why I kind of got out of it. And then I got the job cocktailing in Beverly Hills. But it was pretty exciting while we did it.
I would think that getting a job as a cocktail waitress at an exclusive club in Beverly Hills with a bunch of movie stars and stuff would be a pretty coveted job. Obviously, you're a very attractive woman that was able to, get the gig. But, was there other stuff? Did you have to sleep with a manager for the job, or was there anything like that ever going on?
No, actually, I was a cashier at a restaurant called Ciro's Pomodoro, and Ciro was, really popular in the Hollywood scene, and he used to hang out the Rainbow and the rock scene. He was just an Italian restaurant owner, but they used to have a show there on Mondays that was called the Skippy Lowe's Talent Show. And it brought in a lot of producers and people to showcase their talent, to see people showcase their talent. So I kind of, got to meet a lot of people then. And, when you were talking about Sam Kinison too, I mean, he used to go to the Rainbow. I've been to his house a couple of times, partied there many nights, late. And, it was just a really fun time in the late 80s, early 90s.
Did you ever see comics and think, oh, I want to sleep with them too? Or was it only the rock stars?
It was really only kind of like the rock stars, because I wasn't really into doing comedy, but I did know Sam Kinison from being at his house, and he had a lot of after parties. And it wasn't until I was doing comedy that I had this one drug dealer friend who was really good friends with Sam called me up one night in the middle of the night asking me to bring my comedy tape up to Sam's house and play it. So because he said that Sam was always looking for unknowns to take on the road with him because he didn't have to pay him shit. And at first I thought he was just pulling my leg, but then I thought, well, holy shit, is he getting me up there because they want me to bring up more liquor, or what was the deal? What was the real motive of coming up there? But I never did show up, and it was kind of funny because I did talk to Sam on the phone briefly, and I said, hey, I just want to say, I asked him a question about comedy because I used to swear a lot, and they told me that if I didn't stop swearing, I was never going to make it on, TV.
Sure.
So he gave me some good advice of just basically telling me to take fuck out of all my jokes. And he says that when you cuss less and then you actually do drop an F-bomb, that it's twice as funny because you're not saying it every 3 minutes.
Now, Sam Kinison, I did stand-up comedy for a number of years, and I worked with Sam about 2 weeks before he died. But back in the days you're talking about, I knew Mark Maron, who was living in the comedy condo for the Comedy Store. And Kinison was living there a lot.
Right.
And Mark told me one time that he would go to bed. When he went to sleep, he would actually sleep in the closet because Sam would barge into all the rooms at 4 a.m. or whatever, looking for people to party with. And if he saw you in bed, he would wake you up and drag you out. And because he was such a big deal at the Comedy Store, the other comics didn't want to, mess with him. So Mark would actually sleep in the closet so that Sam couldn't find him so he could get some rest.
Yeah, I've also seen him kick people out of his house for not putting any money in the hat when he passed it around to collect money to get more drugs.
Really?
Yeah.
So he's
like, if you don't put any money in this hat, you're the fuck out of my house.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So
I don't know if it was for liquor or drugs or what was going on, but there would be a point if there was no more booze, and it's like if you couldn't contribute, you get the hell out.
At what point then did you start? You have turned your life around. I mean, you're not into doing this sort of stuff like this at all, and haven't for years, right?
No, I mean the last show that I've done went to was the Sick Puppies, and it was kind of funny. I took my stepson there, but I mean I don't I don't live that lifestyle anymore. But we did go to, it was kind of funny because we were going to the end of the line of the Sokol Auditorium, and the lead singer had actually walked out, was walking all the way down the sidewalk, and nobody even realized it was the lead singer of Sick Puppies, except for like me, and he walked into some bar that was right there on the corner. So I grabbed my stepson and we went in there and we got our picture taken with him, and he got to meet him and get an autograph.
Well, no, but I wanted to talk about like when you started to turn your life around, when you started to, clean up your act. Okay, this would have been like at what age?
8 years ago.
Okay, so I mean, yeah, you were like 40 or something by that time, right?
Yes.
When you started cleaning up your act.
But I mean, I wasn't still chasing rock stars like I used to. I mean, if there was somebody coming to town that I knew, I would definitely go to the show. If I knew I was going to get backstage, but it wasn't like I was, I wasn't, hanging around the buses at 40 in Fredericks of Hollywood Lycra or anything,
No, but so what were you doing between that time then? Were you just like waitressing?
Waitressing downtown at the Hilton Garden Inn at a place called Nick and Tony's, and then I was, basically.
So you're back in Omaha at this time?
Yeah, I've been living back in Omaha for 12 years now.
Okay, yeah, but you came back to? Did you come back to Omaha to like calm down your life or what?
Well, I came back to Omaha in 1999 because I was seeing a rock star that I used to date back in the day, and I'd been seeing him on and off for about 2 years, and then I found out that he was seeing somebody else too, and I wasn't real happy with that, and I had a really hard time with it, so I really just moved back to Omaha because I just wanted to be away from the whole situation.
Do you honestly think so? You had you had relationships and maybe long-term relationships with some rock stars?
Well, this particular one I did.
Who was it?
Well, his name was Juan Crucier, and he was from Rat. And, when I found, like, he always had a girlfriend when I knew him. And then, he got married. Well, he had a kid first, and then he got married. And then after that, I knew he was married, so I just stayed away from him. I saw him a couple times out in Hollywood, and it was good to just see him. But, I mean, I didn't hang out with him or sleep with him or anything. And I kind of always wondered, like, I really, at one point in my life, he was just the love of my life. I always thought, well, maybe if it was meant to be, that, something might happen later on. And then it was weird because, like, later on in the 90s, one of my ex-roommates called me up, and she's all like, hey, Rita. And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, what was that guy's name in that band that you used to go out with? And I said, Juan, why? And she goes, you're never going to believe this. And I said, what? She goes, I work with his wife down in the restaurant in Manhattan Beach, and she's divorcing him. So I waited like 6 months. And I got his number. Well, I got his number like the next day through somebody. But then I waited like 6 months to give him a call. And then I gave him a call, and it was really weird. We talked for like 3 hours. And then I went down to see him. And it was really kind of weird because, it was good to see him and all. But it was just, he was still very hurt and I think damaged from the divorce. So I was just kind of like, at that time, I was already, rolling hard and doing partying still. So
right.
This was a lot of work. And I remember seeing like the baby bottle laying around and the kids' toys and then going, oh, hell no, right? Like, this is not a shoe that I'm about ready to fit into, And then it was funny because I kind of lost contact with him after that. And then it was a couple years or maybe 3 or 4 years after that somebody else that I knew ran into him. And he wanted me to call him. And so I ended up calling him, and then we ended up, hanging out and started kind of dating again.
Okay. But you couldn't be surprised that he was sleeping with other women. I mean, because you were, you saw that lifestyle. You lived that lifestyle. You were the other woman in many cases. Why? So you couldn't have been surprised when he was doing that to you.
Well, I wouldn't say that I was surprised, but, you want to believe what people tell you. And when you think that you really know somebody and they're, not telling you that, then you believe what you want to believe.
Yeah.
And when it kind of, when the reality really hit me, I was just very hurt because this is something that I kind of saw us, that I thought was going to go into the future, which didn't. But now, for all reasons, I'm very thankful and graceful that it didn't work out that way because, I'd probably be divorced by now.
So you came back to Omaha, but you're still doing drugs and you're still partying and everything. You're just, but you're just a waitress now. And if a rock band came to town, somebody you knew, you might go and hang out with them.
Right, exactly. But it wasn't like my main focus in life anymore. I had already kind of been through all that. But, it wasn't until I was going to become a mom that I really, that's when I straightened my life out.
Okay. So talk to me about that. How does that work itself out? You were going to become a mom. So you must have found some guy here and fell in love and, get married or?
Well, I'm engaged. I've been engaged for like almost 9 years now. Well, not 9 years, 7 years. I'm sorry, 7 years. We've been together 9 years.
And you've been engaged for 7 of those years.
Yes, we've been engaged for
yes,
7 years.
Well, no need to rush into anything.
No, exactly. I got all the time in the world.
Okay, so you were going to become a mom, and then you just got off the drugs and
Yeah, well, I started going to AA, and really after a few AA meetings, you know, I was, and you're going to probably laugh, but I kind of went back to church. And once I kind of went back to church, it just kind of, you know, I met new friends and, you know, just kind of gave me the strength and the faith that I needed to just know that I didn't need to go to a rehab and that it really didn't have to go to any more of those AA meetings, and just did it on my own, you know?
Okay, so now you're a mom.
Right.
You're a mom.
I'm a super mom.
A super mom. You're in a long-term relationship.
Right.
Okay. Now, he evidently had a son or how many kids are in your family now?
I have a son and I have a stepson. My
Okay.
son is 7, and then I have a stepson that's 12.
Okay. So you got the 2 kids. You've written this book.
Right.
Okay. You've written the book about all your exploits and everything. And now you've got this double life. On one hand, you're like just a soccer mom.
Right.
You know, on the other hand, you're
Rocker mom.
A rocker mom. But I mean, you know, people wouldn't think, oh, hey, look, yeah, there was the chick that was, you know, sleeping with all these rock stars. You know, you live in this life. The book's out now. Now people that thought of you as a nice little church-going lady with the kids.
Right.
Has there been any repercussions from the book?
Not really. I mean, the reason that I wrote the book is when I moved in with my fiance, I had a whole box of stuff, all my photographs, passes, and everything. And it was just kind of sitting there. And he said to me, well, what are you going to do with all that? And I thought, well, I don't know. And he wanted me to get rid of it. And I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Yeah. So I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to write a book. And so it was interesting because I had a customer at Roth that had passed away that I waited on for 5 years, every Wednesday and every Saturday night. And he left me $2,000 in his will. So I went out and I bought myself a MacBook Pro, and I said, you know, I'm going to take this negative around of losing my friend, and I'm going to turn around into a positive. And so once I started writing my book, it just started to flow. So, you know, I don't really have any regrets about writing the book. I'm actually very proud of my book. I mean, there's not really anything, you know, basically it's a coming of age book, just like anything else. And yeah, I did make some mistakes, you know, and the 80s was kind of like a big sausage festival. I mean, there was a lot of sex going on and everybody was sleeping with everybody. It's not anything new, but it was a good time.
But it's also the time of AIDS was coming up, though, and everything, too.
Yeah.
Were you ever, I mean, you know, you were with these rock stars. Did you use protection, or did you ever worry about AIDS?
Yes, I worried about it a lot. And, you know, there were times where I did have unprotected sex. And when AIDS kind of all came out with the whole HIV, I mean, I can remember, like, the longest 2 weeks of my life was getting that AIDS test. Mm-hmm. You know, and knowing that, you know, sleeping with all the people that I had slept with in my life, I was just blown away. I was like, oh my God, you know.
But that didn't make you change at all.
Oh yeah, well it did. I mean, you know, in the 90s, everybody was sleeping with condoms. You know, everyone was using condoms at that time. It didn't matter if you were on birth control or not. Everybody was wearing a condom at that point because there were just, HIV was just, you know, everywhere, you know.
Did rock stars worry about it? In other words, okay, so you were concerned, so you're making sure condoms are there, but were the rock stars at the time of all this going on, were they all of a sudden maybe not as willing to sleep with some unknown woman that just showed up at the show?
I wouldn't really know, but I'll tell you what, we can't ask the dead ones now, can we?
No, I guess you can't. I guess you can. So, okay. So now you're the mom and all of that. As you look back on all of this,
right?
Any regrets?
I really can't say that I have any regrets. I think that, you know, I was a teenager when, you know, when most of this was going on for the most part. From the age of 14, you know, to 19, it was really, I think when I had the craziest times. You know, and then when I got to LA and I was 21, it wasn't, you know, as big as I thought it was, as, you know, after being out in LA, and, you know, it wasn't as crazy to me as it was, but I don't have any regrets. I think I wrote a really great book. I think I tell a little bit of everything. I'd probably tell more than people probably maybe even want to read. And, you know, there was a lot that was edited out too. So, you know, but I thought it makes for a really good read. And, you know, there's some great photographs in my book, and it really tells like an honest to good story of a Midwestern girl that was seeing through rose-colored glasses.
Okay, no, if you're a waitress now, and like you said, you got kids in school and that. If you're at a PTA meeting or something, and some other mom knows that, oh, you're Rita Rae Roxx, you're the one that wrote the book, you were that groupie. Do they look at you like, oh, you're her, or do they look at you and like, tell me about sleeping with all these rock stars. I mean, what kind of an attitude do you normally get with the other soccer moms, there at school?
Well, like, for instance, there was an article that was written about me in the Omaha World Herald, and it came out on a Sunday. Well, I went to the early service that Sunday at 8:30, so nobody had really read the paper yet. So I remember the next week I skipped church, okay? And then the week after that, I saw like somebody posted on my Facebook page. They went, "Holy Rita, I didn't know you had such a colorful past," right? So, but, I had a few people from church even come up and buy the book and ask me to sign it, which was cool with me. But I figure, I am there for a reason, right?
Once again, her book is called Once Upon a Rock Star. The webpage is onceupon-a-rockstarbook.com. You can download it also on Amazon, on iPod, and all of that. Get the book at bookstores and read all the sort of details for yourself. I want to thank Rita Rae for being a part of this. If you like the podcast, please tell your friends, spread the word around, send a link, and let them know about TomBecka.com. And if you really liked it, could you buy me a sandwich? Could you buy me a beer? Make a donation. Help out. Keep the podcast alive so I can go and interview interesting people with life stories to tell. Hope you'll check out all the other great podcasts that we have here on TomBecka.com.